Hey, welcome in to the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. Go by SEC Mike on the Twitters. And there's our great friend, Stephen Lassan, the senior editor over at Athlon Sports. Stephen, we missed you last week. How was your media days?
Mike, I enjoyed everything that you guys were cranking out down there at SEC Media Day. So I was enjoying from afar. Shout out to you and Cousin Shane for all the awesome content. And Mike, I missed you guys, but now that Media Days is over, it means one thing. Fall practice is around the corner, and that means the season is almost here. That's great news, isn't it?
I think it is, Stephen. I think it is. So we were discussing offline. This is going to be one of the last opportunities for us to kind of hand out record predictions for each and every SEC team. Stephen and I did this last year, and we had a lot of fun doing it, so we're going to do it again. We're going to give a best case record, a worst case record, and then an actual record prediction for each and every one of the 16 SEC teams. So, throw us a donation if you want, and we'll put your team at the top of the list and spend a little extra time on them, but totally optional. We're going to hit on all the teams here on this episode, so it should be a lot of fun. I also asked Stephen to come prepared because we did this last year. I think we just kind of forgot, but a weekly bold prediction. And you know what jogged my memory, Stephen? I was down there with your associate Kyle, who we interviewed, and that interview will be hitting the channel soon. And he said, I gave Stephen this really good statistic about Florida not having a 1,000-yard receiver, and I don't know, I can't even recall the stat, but it's like 10, 15 years. And then Stephen comes on this program. He's like, hey, I found this stat. Florida had a 1,000-yard receiver. One of my bold predictions, they're going to have one. So that jogged my memory. So shout out Kyle for coming up with that statistic. But I kid, Stephen. But are you ready to break down all this?
I am, Mike. Shout out to Kyle, my colleague over there. He did a great job at SEC Media Days. He did give me that Florida stat. I should have given credit if I didn't. Shame on me.
Hey, also, before we get into that, just, we don't have to spend a whole ton of time because we've kind of, it's been covered to no end, but did you have any takeaways from SEC Media Days? Anything that stood out to you that we didn't get you on last week to discuss? Anything at all kind of jump out to you, whether it's maybe a team or a coach you're a little bit higher on, maybe a team or a coach you're a little bit lower on, anything like that?
Mike, I think one thing that was good news was the Ahmad Hardy situation. The fact that does seem to be some optimism that he is going to be coming back, perhaps maybe early October for Missouri this season was great news. Also think just based upon the SEC media poll that came out on Friday, way, way too low on Oklahoma. This team feels a lot closer to the top than 7th in the conference. I was very surprised to see that. Big picture, Mike, I thought all the new coaches showed up really well too. I thought they brought some, as you kind of said, new energy to SEC Media Days. And Pete Golding was awesome. John Summerall, I thought, would do very well. But Alex Golish, Ryan Silverfield, the rest of the gang there, thought they all showed up well and kind of livened up SEC Media Days a bit.
Yeah, we needed that new blood. Get those old farts out of here. Get us some coaches down here. We've had a real problem with coaching in the SEC, in my opinion, the last couple years. And I think that's part of the reason why, allegedly, I don't buy into this, but allegedly the Big Ten has passed the SEC. I think part of it's coaching. I would admit they got better coaches up there overall, but we still got some good ones in the Southeastern Conference, and I think we just added a bunch of other ones. So hopefully that kind of evens the coaching edge here, but remains to be seen. Stephen, all these guys are undefeated. We love them all. Come October, we're probably going to be wanting to fire some of these guys' asses. You know what?
Yeah, the honeymoon is going to end in just over 30-something days, right? I mean, Mike, I think just kind of watching all these guys, and I think I was curious to see how Ryan Silverfield would handle the moment for Arkansas. I thought he handled it really well. First of all, loved his kind of anecdote about his record against the other coaches. He's not going to throw the podium at anybody, even though it was very clear. John Summerall was joking, but like Silverfield, I think, kind of answered just everything the right way, understanding kind of where this program has to go. Love, kind of Pete Golding's just kind of, just ball coach, kind of just no holds barred mentality. And of course, you did a great job kind of pressing Lane Kiffin there with your question. So it's great to see like all these new coaches come into the conference. We'll see what happens. It's the off season. Everybody is optimistic, but I think you are right as well on coaching hires in the Big Ten. Dan Lanning, Ryan Day, Kirk Cignetti. Those three coaches are three of the top 6 in the country. You look at, of course, with the SEC, we've seen Nick Saban retire. We've seen Brian Kelly didn't work out. Florida and Auburn have been down. So, Mike, to me, if the Big Ten has passed the SEC, coaching hires have been a big part of that. One of the ways for the SEC to get back on top is to get those hires like a Summerall, Golish, some of these other guys to lift those programs back up into the top 25.
Yeah, no doubt, Steven. So we got a lot to hit on. We should move on. But before we get to it, again, we're going to do all 16 SEC teams predictions. Best case, worst case, and final record. Steven's got us a bold take he's like to share. What is your bold take, Steven, for this episode?
I'm going to combine 2 things, Mike, into this prediction. So we posted the bold predictions a few weeks ago, and I'm going to stick with it. So first of the kind of a 2-parter here, the SEC gets 5 teams into the college football playoff, but one of those is going to be 9-3. The committee is going to actually take into account the strength of schedule for one of these teams that finishes 9-3, and they will get picked over a 10-2 team. 10-2 team, maybe it's BYU. I guess 10-3 would be BYU if they lose the Big 12 championship game. Maybe it's a team from the ACC or Big 10. But I think the SEC gets 5 teams in, and one of those is 9-3.
Wow. That was something that a lot of people were discussing at Media Days, just whether that can happen. Because it is yet to happen. Of course, we're going to a 9-game SEC schedule, so not all records are built equally, and there's a huge concern on whether these schedules and their difficulty will be honored. And we could all sit here and say it will or it won't, but the reality is we don't know till it actually takes place. So that is one of the bigger question marks looming over, particularly the SEC in 2026, don't you think?
I agree. And I think it's kind of tough because I think there's like this public perception coming out of, the Big Ten is like the SEC is just a bunch of whiners. Well, it's kind of funny because like if you go back a couple of years, wasn't the Big Ten the one doing the whining about why they weren't winning the titles or this or that? And now it's like supposedly the SEC. Mike, I think really you just look at every strength of schedule metric in the preseason. And of course, those can be a little, not necessarily the best way to judge a schedule, or you change a projection here or there and you go from 1 to 10. The bottom line is the SEC has the toughest schedules in the country in most cases, according to these metrics. And so, the committee has to have a better way to take that into account. We saw this at the spring meetings. Like the coaches kind of were not necessarily thrilled with the presentation that the playoff committee gave them. So I think there's got to be some, kind of truth in both things. Like, just because a team is from the SEC and they're 9-3 doesn't guarantee them in the field. But I think when you look at some of these schedules and you start studying like a Texas A&M and Oklahoma, what Texas, like you could make a case that if you're at the top of the strength of schedule and your 3 losses might be to playoff teams, you're probably better than some of these 10-2 teams. So kind of my reasoning with this is not public pressure, not SEC complaints, is that I think the committee is going to have to look at this and say 9 games in the toughest conference in college football, and one of those teams is sitting there at 9-3. That's why I think they'll get that nod in the playoff.
One interesting thing, Steven, that I did learn at SEC Media Days, I had no idea. I just wanted to bring this to your attention and see if you had heard this. But according to Pete Golding and Mike Elko, so we got multiple coaches have gone on the record and confirmed this. During that spring meetings with the representative of the College Football Playoff Committee, I don't know who it specifically they met with, but whoever that was, the playoff committee representative, informed the SEC coaches that the playoff committee does not care where a game is played when they evaluate it. So technically, home or on the road, it means no different to the college football playoff committee. I mean, how asinine is that? I mean, literally anybody that knows anything about this sport knows it's more difficult to win on the road than it is at home. How could they not look at that?
Mike, that's completely asinine for the committee to not consider where games are played. Like, doesn't it matter if it's a neutral site game? Doesn't it matter if it's at home or the road? I mean, Mike, you've probably done, W and L projections. What do? You start with like the non-conference. You start with the home games and the road, and then you kind of break down, like, usually your swing games are kind of whatever games are on the road for some of these teams. So I mean, location is a big part of it. And so many great atmospheres. Shouldn't, like, if Georgia was to go on the road and beat Texas and Austin one year, and that's being compared to an Ohio State that's got maybe is undefeated. Georgia's got one loss. They have that road win over the number 3 team. Shouldn't that count for something in the evaluation? So Mike, I continue to be confused about a lot of things with this committee dating back to last year. I have zero confidence that they will make good decisions based upon what happened last year. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't have a lot of confidence. And if they're not considering where the game is played, that's just another kind of mark against them.
That it is, Stephen. That it is. I will not rest till we get you on that committee, because I know you won't be bought and paid for like these fools. You know what?
Absolutely, Mike. Hey, I'm always available for the playoff committee. I will also say this, Mike. I've been trying to get this idea going. Stop letting the committee chairperson be the person on ESPN. Get somebody who actually knows the sport to be able to listen to these discussions, get in front of the camera that night, and be able to explain. I don't want to hear anything about like body clocks or the offensive stats for this team or this team. Get some hardcore analysis in front of there. I'd be happy to do it, but after
I
what I've
nominate
said,
Steven, Cousin Shane, and Paul Feinbaum. Just put them in a room. They'll get it figured out. You know what?
I like that. I like that idea. I think we could make that happen.
And then I'll be the one that moderates it on ESPN. I'll take all the bullets for you guys.
We're already like 1,000% better than what we're going to have this year on Tuesday nights, right?
All right, so shout out. We got our first donation, Stephen from Cousin Glenn. We appreciate you, buddy. Cousin Glenn Warsaw. Looking forward to the predictions. It's 6:06 and Texas still sucks. Boomer Sooner. We appreciate you, Glenn. So, of course, he's a Boomer Sooner over here. So let's do Oklahoma first here, Stephen. I'm struggling to find a schedule. Here it is. So let me run through this real quick. The over-under 7.5, to me, that's largely irrelevant. I'm not really look at that. I don't know about you when I make my predictions, but that's what it is on the betting market. Here's the schedule for the audio listeners listening back. UTEP at home, at Michigan, New Mexico at home, at Georgia. Then you get your bye. Texas, down in Dallas, of course. Kentucky at home, at Mississippi State, Carolina at home, at Florida, Ole Miss at home, A&M at home, at Missouri. And Stephen, we did this for our fall camp preview series. We did the win-loss toss. So this is what I had for Oklahoma, win-loss toss. A lot of wins there. UTEP, New Mexico, Kentucky, at Mississippi State, at Missouri. I got at Michigan, Texas, Ole Miss, and A&M. I got those as the toss-ups, and at Florida as well. And then only one game that is likely to be a loss, but it's still winnable, is at Georgia. So I'm not sitting here saying they got no shot at Georgia. I just think that's quite literally the toughest task you could have someone do, in my opinion, is beat a team in Athens. So what would be your thoughts? Would you agree with these? Do you disagree with any of these?
I agree with those, Mike. I think when you just look at that schedule, the first thing that jumps out to me is Michigan, Georgia, and Texas, kind of like on your first stretch of the season. I mean, those are all toss-up games against playoff caliber, we think, opponents for this year. They all come in the first like 5 or 6 weeks of the season. It's pretty critical that Oklahoma gets off to a good start. And I think the back half of the schedule, I like how you have it. Florida, Ole Miss and Texas A&M as toss-ups because two of those teams made the playoff and going to the swamp before you have to play Ole Miss and Texas A&M is tough. Not to mention Florida later in the season, I think is going to be better. So I like that breakdown, how you have it with the W's, L's, and toss-ups. I think that's how I would have it too.
All right, so let's do a little worst case. Let's start with the bad. Let's get the bad. It's like pulling a Band-Aid off. You know what? So again, this is worst case. What do you have worst case, Stephen, for Oklahoma if everything goes wrong? I'm leaning 7-5 with losses likely at Michigan, at Georgia, Texas, and then some combination of at Florida, Ole Miss, A&M. You're not going to lose all of those last three, but I think you could lose two of them. And that's absolute worst case for me. What would you say worst case record for Oklahoma?
Mike, you are a smart man tonight because we are on the same page. I've got 7-5 too. I just think those toss-up games, like I mentioned there at the start of the season, as ones at the back half, like those are all toss-up games for this Oklahoma team. That's the one kind of factor in all this is they could win all these games, and we're talking about a team that's in the SEC championship game playing for a top 4 seed, or we're talking about a team that could be 8-4 but also be really, really good, but just a product of playing a really hard schedule. So I've got it, worst case scenario be 7-5. You just kind of lose all those swing toss-up games.
Mm-hmm. So let's be a little bit more positive here, Stephen. Best case scenario, you got to imagine the offense takes a big step. Depth emerges on the defensive side of the football. Relatively there's no one going to be completely injury free, but key positions, you stay healthy. I think best case, and this is like pie in the sky type, right? Give me 11-1 with the only loss being at Georgia. I think that's best case for Oklahoma.
We're on the same page, my friend. I've got 11-1
Nice.
too, because I think this team can get to the SEC championship game. Certainly, some questions about depth on defense. How far does this offensive line and rushing attack progress? Like, what do we get out of John Mateer in his second season in Norman? But as much as we talk about like toss-ups, like I would agree with you that Georgia to me is like the one guaranteed loss. Those other games are all winnable. And so if you put those in the W column, maybe they would stumble somewhere else. And you could say because of that tough schedule, 10-2 is like the best case. I still think it's 11-2. I think the upside is this defense plays like it did last year. Offense comes alive with John Mateer and this offensive line and rushing attack. And that gets Oklahoma with the only loss being at Georgia. So I'll take 11-1 for best case too.
Well, I think you just answered my question there, Stephen. I was going to ask you, the Longhorn lover over there. Which game's tougher, at Georgia or Texas? But I think you just answered at Georgia, right?
I think it's got to be at Georgia. I just think on the road in Athens, I think, Texas certainly, they took care of business last year in this game, but you get revenge maybe in Dallas this year. So I'd have to go with Georgia. I think that's fair, don't you?
Yeah, I do too. All right, so that now, not best case, not worst case, but your actual record prediction for Oklahoma. We're just doing regular season. Camera went out. That's a good cue to let you know. I'm going 10-0 as I try to fix my camera.
Mike, I think hopefully the Oklahoma offense is way more productive than the camera tonight. Only lasting about 20 minutes into the show. So hopefully this offense for Oklahoma takes a big step forward. But Mike, I think this defense will again be one of the best in the SEC, and I think the offense does take a big step forward. So I'm taking 10-2 for the Oklahoma Sooners, getting back to the college football playoff, and I think there's a good chance that this team wins at least one game in the playoff, perhaps more if this offense comes alive like we talked about. It is a very difficult schedule. Perhaps they could fit into that 9-3 SEC discussion. That early season test against Michigan going to be really, really crucial for both Michigan and Oklahoma's playoff hopes, I think, and just for positioning within the Big Ten and the SEC. So I like Oklahoma 10-2 as well.
Well, excuse me, Stephen, what I would like was for this camera to work. Hold on. Let me turn it on and off again.
Hey, while we're thinking about Oklahoma, Mike, I was going to mention September 19th against New Mexico. New Mexico probably going to end up being one of the better teams in the Mountain West this year. A week after Michigan, New Mexico went out to UCLA and pounded Nico and UCLA last season. That was the last game that Deshaun Foster ended up coaching for UCLA. So New Mexico could be a tricky non-conference game. By no means picking Oklahoma to lose that game, but just thinking about going to Michigan, turning around and playing a tricky New Mexico team early in the season before you play Georgia, before you play Texas. So that is a very, very difficult stretch for Oklahoma to start the season. UTEP should be a breather in week one, but just kind of looking down the schedule, I mean, tricky road trips to Mississippi State, Florida, Missouri. This is a very, very difficult schedule for a team that I do think can be better than it was last season.
Whoa. All right. This is not the good camera. All right. Let's see. Might have to go this route for now. All right. How's that? Looks pretty shitty, doesn't it?
Mike, did cousin Shane leave you in Tampa this last week?
He may as well have, because this is not working. But
well, your last interview on YouTube was Marler, wasn't it?
Yes, maybe he has corrupted the system. Has Marler done it again? He's corrupted us all.
He's done it again. He's done it again, my friend.
Well, all right. Well, I don't know what the hell's going on here, but I can't get my camera to work, so I'm looking now into my little FaceTime camera. All right. So sorry, 10-2. We both got 10-2 for Oklahoma.
We do, my friend. I think we're both going 10-2 and 7-5 for worst case, 10-2 best case.
Okay. All right. So now that everything's gone damn haywire, how about we do Tennessee, Stephen? Let's throw their record up here. Best case, worst case for them Tennessee Vols. Furman at home, at Georgia Tech, Kennesaw State at home, Texas at home, Auburn at home, at Arkansas, Bama at home, at Carolina. Then they get their bye. Kentucky at home, at A&M, LSU at home, and at Vanderbilt. Stephen, over under 7.5. Where would you put the worst case for old Tennessee?
Mike, I think cousin Shane might be kind of angry with me if I say this, but let's go ahead and get it out of the way. What if the defense struggles? What if the quarterback play is still an issue? I still think Tennessee's floor is high enough to go to a bowl game, but you do play Texas, you play Alabama, LSU, Georgia Tech, at South Carolina, Vanderbilt, at Texas A&M. Schedule's tough. So I go 6-6. Call me crazy.
Oh, why do you hate the Vols, Stephen? I'm looking right at you. I'm going to start pointing now that I can be right in front of the camera. But 6-6. Good night, Stephen. I'm saying worst case 7-5. But again, yeah, to the point you made, if the defense is garbage, but I just have so much faith in Josh Heupel, it's hard for me to see them not having a quarterback that works. I just think that's too low, Stephen. But I'm saying 7-5. That's not significantly different than 6-6. But I guess I just got a little bit more sense in me than you.
Mike, I think if you just kind of sketch out like a worst case scenario, at Georgia Tech, Texas, Alabama, at South Carolina, at Texas A&M, LSU, and at Vanderbilt, like that gets you to like that 6-6. Now, I'm certainly not going to predict it because I want to be back on next week's show, and I don't want you or cousin Shane to kick me off. But you could, in theory, make a case like, okay, like yeah, the confidence is high in Heupel, but maybe the quarterback play doesn't come together and the defense struggles, and all of a sudden you got a team that's a lot closer to bowl eligibility than college football playoff. So I'm not picking it, but I can get there based upon the schedule. So I know I'm got some crazy talk going on. I got a lot more positivity on the best case, though.
All right, so give us your best case there, Stephen.
Mike, it's 10-2, and it's the college football playoff. And in that scenario, Cousin Shane is talking contract extension, lifetime contract for Josh Heupel in Knoxville. I think Tennessee could get to 10-2 if the quarterback play is solid and the defense. I'm a lot more, I guess, concerned about the defensive side of the ball because I trust Heupel and the quarterbacks, but I do think this defense is going to be better under Jim Knowles this year.
All right, so that's better, Stephen. That's better. But it's still not good enough because I think, again, best case, right? Give me 11-1 for Tennessee. Now, is that realistic? Probably not. But best case, because you get Texas at home, you get Bam at home, you get LSU at home, at A&M. I think those are the 4 most difficult games. 3 out of the 4 at home. I think they could potentially, I don't know if they can win all those home games, but I think they, let's say A&M takes a step back. Could they beat A&M and win all but one of the home games? I think they could. So give me 11-1, best case scenario for Tennessee. Am I crazy?
Not at all, because I love the timing for both those games. The LSU game comes late in the season. It's good for LSU. It's also good for Tennessee. By then, you would think their quarterback situation and defense is kind of aligned or figured out. Also, we saw this last year with Texas. I mean, it took Arch Manning, over half a season to get going. I don't think it will take him that long this year. But with all the pieces like Cam Coleman, Malik Brown, Hollywood Smothers, some faces on the offensive line, what if Texas puts everything into that Ohio State game and they go on the road to Tennessee and we see what happened last year when they played Mississippi State, when they struggled against Kentucky, when they lost to Florida? Road issues maybe in the SEC, Texas going to Tennessee. I could see that for Tennessee, easily talking myself into kind of an 11-1 best case scenario.
I'm glad I've won you over here, Stephen. All right, so what is your actual record prediction for Tennessee this year?
Mike, I'm going 8-4, I think.
Oh,
I split
this
the difference. This
has been a disaster
here.
Of a show.
Kind of like Tennessee's defense was last year. I went 8-4. Honestly, it might be a little bit low. I'm just looking at LSU, Texas A&M, and Texas, and then I kind of thought I got to find like an upset loss in there somewhere. Maybe it's at South Carolina. Maybe it's at Vanderbilt. So I went 8-4. I wanted to get to 9-3. So you can talk me into 9-3 if you want.
I'm going 10-2, Stephen. I got them in the playoffs. So it's concerning to me that that's your best case. And that's what I say it is going to happen. So maybe I'm officially off my rocker like my damn camera that just shut down. But I don't know, Stephen. I see a path here. I'm about the only one that can see it. But I think Tennessee is making a playoff. I don't think 10-2 is that unrealistic. They'll obviously need some breaks. They'll need the defense to be a lot better, and they'll need a quarterback to emerge. But I just have so much confidence in old Josh Heupel, who's talking trash and saying throw stuff at Kiffin. I love to see it. So I don't know. I don't think we see this Josh Heupel, Stephen, unless he is uber confident in this team. And they got Indiana strength coach too. So I think that's an underrated offseason hire right there.
I do too. I did find, Heupel's kind of approach at SEC Media Days I thought was interesting. And it's always dangerous to kind of read into like a coach's demeanor or what they say. But kind of the feeling on Spurrier was the more he talked, the better he felt about his team. So I don't know if that necessarily holds true here too or not. But I do think just looking from the outside and what we saw last year, we've talked about the defense, how they're going to get better. Like you said, the strength coach, like finding ways to win around the margins. And now Heupel did X, Y, and Z with Joey Aguilar, putting together an offense that was that productive. And now you get Faison Brandon, who's probably going to be really good in time. I mean, there's a lot of potential for this team. Plus the schedule breaks favorably for Tennessee. I think too many people are dismissing Tennessee because of what happened last year, not looking at the improvements plus the favorable schedule they have.
I agree, Stephen. I agree. I also agree that we got a nice donation from Based Good. Just hopped on here, so I'm a tad late. Just want to say, money line boomers. It's funny. Old John Mateer. I so wanted to ask him, Stephen, about his interesting Venmos, but I said to myself, "Hey, is this the last time I want to talk to anybody from Oklahoma?" No, it is not. So I did ask it, but that could have been a funny question at Media Days, don't you think?
It could have, and they probably would have asked you to leave SEC Media Days early, right? You guys would have had to do it outside the building, right?
Yeah, like the legend that got damn kicked out. So
yeah,
I honestly I considered it, but I didn't think it was. What do they say? The juice isn't always worth the squeeze, and that was the route I took on that one.
Yeah, you guys, I know you guys will have a great interview with Mateer, and not to mention you guys, Quincy Rhodes too. It's good to have those interviews. You want to keep those opportunities coming, right?
All right, hey, how about one of the more interesting teams, Stephen, this season in the SEC? LSU over/unders 8.5 for what that's worth. I've actually seen it bumped up to 9.5 in some sports books, so I guess it's moving a little bit here. They got Clemson in the opener at home, Louisiana Tech at home, at Ole Miss, A&M at home, McNeese at home, at Kentucky, Mississippi State at home, at Auburn. Then they get their bye. Alabama at home, Texas at home, at Tennessee, at Arkansas. What would be the worst case scenario for LSU in the debut season of Lane Kiffin?
Mike, I'm going 8-4. Maybe that's too optimistic on the worst case scenario, but I do think this schedule is favorable. You get Texas A&M, and Alabama at home. Not to mention your road games are, some of them Arkansas, Kentucky, and Auburn. Very, very winnable stretch here. Plus Clemson comes to your place early for week 1. So no doubt about it. I mean, Ole Miss and Tennessee are tough. Like I said, Texas A&M are tough. But I also think the schedule is pretty favorable considering all the new at LSU this year.
Wow. I forgot you were a LSU homer too now, I guess, huh? So 8-4 worst case. Good night, Stephen. I'm gonna say 6-6.
Ooh.
Now again, this is absolute worst case, right? But we've got some. Couldn't you see a scenario here where, again, I know Clemson's kind of a joke now, but it's almost like there's no shot. Clemson's got no shot in this game, and that to me is a little tricky. At Ole Miss, of course, we know what a good game that potentially could be. A&M, there is a realistic scenario that they lose all of those. Now, is that very likely? No, but even let's just say they lose 2 of them, which I think is highly probable. You still got Alabama, which you, for the life of you, can't beat. They beat you like 13 out of 15. Texas, at Tennessee, at Auburn. I don't know, Stephen. I think worst case is 6-6 in a debut era.
I could see that, especially if you're worried about Sam Leavitt and his foot. Now, all systems seem to be 100% go for the season, but if he's not, that all of a sudden you talk about putting a quarterback in Longstreet who doesn't have a lot of college experience into the heart of SEC play. Then I think you are talking kind of a scenario where 6-6 becomes a lot more viable. One thing I think is kind of helpful when I look at LSU's schedule is I kind of break it down into thirds, because I think that the first, you mentioned Clemson, at Ole Miss, and Texas A&M. They could lose all 3 of those games, but I think they could go 2-1 in that stretch. Then you get to McNeese, at Kentucky, Mississippi State, at Auburn. Then by November, after you've had the off week, all those new pieces, you should be and kind of figured out who you are by then. Then you get Alabama, Texas, and then that road trip to Tennessee, and then Arkansas. So I like the way the schedule breaks down, and that kind of almost insulates the concerns that I have about all the new pieces. If you told me Sam Leavitt got hurt, then I think I get much more closer to 6-6. But I think the schedule kind of insulates Kiffin from a drop to like 6-6 or something worse than that, just because there's a lot of W's I can get to here.
No, that makes sense. So if 8-4 is your low bar, but my goodness, Steven, I can't imagine what's your best case scenario for LSU. What do you got for the best case?
I'm going 11-1, Mike, because Alabama, Texas A&M are all at home. In theory, if this team hits its potential, Lane Kiffin and that offense, it finds its stride to go with Blake Baker and a great defense. I think LSU could get to best case scenario 11-1, with the only loss being at Ole Miss in week 3.
I think you kind of nailed that one, Steven. I think 11-1. I just don't think LSU's got it in them to go undefeated. Now, I could be wrong, but they'll trip up somewhere. That's what Lane Kiffin always does. So I love that 11-1. That's what I have best case as well.
Mike, let me ask you, with the 9-game SEC schedule starting this year, don't you think it's going to be a lot harder? I think we would both agree it's hard to go undefeated regardless, but add 9 games in there, the odds of somebody making it through the SEC at 12-0 is probably very, very slim. Fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think you kind of have to almost account for, like, I don't want to say like half of a loss, but if you're like looking at win totals, that's probably why I see all those win totals, kind of maybe a little bit lower than we've seen in past years with the SEC, because they're taking into account that 9-game slate.
Mm-hmm. All right. So official record prediction for LSU, Steven. And I think you've already tipped your hand with your Lane love. I'm just calling you the Lane lover for now on. What's your official prediction for LSU?
I'm going 10-2 college football playoff, Mike. I think this team, it's not going to be easy. There's going to be some twists and turns with all the new pieces, but give me LSU to finish 10-2 and make the college football playoff in Lane Kiffin's first year.
Okay, so I don't think that's totally unrealistic. And I love the fact when Steven and I disagree, that usually means I'm wrong, and you should listen to Steven. Oh, there goes the camera again. Son of a bee. But I'm going, Steven, 8-4. I wanted to point as I said it. I think 8-4 is the record for LSU this year. Not making the playoff. How about that?
Talk about increasing the pressure for Lane Kiffin for year 2, right? Maybe he'll pick back up the social media habit after if they go 8-4. I think that'd be pretty disappointing. I mean, I know there's a lot of new pieces, Mike, but man, and this schedule has its challenges. It's a hard SEC slate, but still, it's manageable enough to where I think you should at least get to the doorstep of the college football playoff. So, Mike, no coincidence we talked about LSU's offense, Oklahoma's offense, and Tennessee's defense, and we're having all these technical issues. But it must be a sign of all these bad groups last year are infecting our show tonight.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. All right. Let's see. Yeah, my camera's sitting out for a new NIL deal. I think that's what's going on. All right. How about Bama, Steven? This one fascinates me here for Steven Epp. Let's do the schedule breakdown real quick. The over-under is 8.5, for whatever that's worth. East Carolina at home, at Kentucky, Florida State at home, Carolina at home, at Mississippi State, Georgia at home, at Tennessee, A&M at home, then they get their bye, at LSU, at Vanderbilt, UT Chattanooga, and then Auburn at home. What would be the worst case, Steven, for Alabama?
I'm going to say 7-5, Mike. And this is, I think, much like LSU, I do think it is a pretty favorable schedule. You also look, and you can go at Mississippi State before you play Georgia, at Tennessee, Texas A&M at home, at LSU, at Vanderbilt, and then you get Auburn later in the season, who I think is going to be a lot better by November. It's manageable, but there's also enough to say if the offensive line doesn't improve, first-time starter, a quarterback, whether it's Russell or Mack, too much pressure, Alabama's transfer additions on the offensive and defensive line don't hit, they take a step back to 7-5. That's I think absolute worst case scenario for Kalen DeBoer here.
Ooh, I think you nailed this one, Steven. 7-5. I call him 4-loss DeBoer now. I'd love to call him 5-loss DeBoer, but I don't think that happens anytime soon. They got too much talent to do any worse than 7-5. But I do think that is that's in the realm of possibility. I mean, in today's modern era, I mean, I think these teams could fall apart quickly, and I'm not necessarily rooting for that, but it's on the table for everybody, I think.
Do you factor into Alabama's projections a crazy surprise loss? Because we've seen it with Florida State last year, and we saw it with Vanderbilt in 2024. You kind of almost have to say they've beaten somebody maybe we didn't think going into the week, and they had a surprise loss at some point there. Is that crazy to take that into account?
No, not at all. And that's why, DeBoer is, what is he? He's undefeated against Dan Lanning and Steve Sarkisian, and one loss to Kirby, but multiple wins. Yet he can't beat Mike Norvell or Sharon Moore. So that's the DeBoer experience right there. I don't know what in the heck we're doing here with him. I mean, he's got to win some more big time games, in my opinion.
Do not lose to Kentucky. Do not lose to Mississippi State, right? That would probably be my best advice this year for Kalen DeBoer. But Mike, there still was a lot of upside with this team. I mean, Nick Saban was pretty high, it sounds like, on the defensive line from his time at SEC Media Days last week. Do like the potential for this group, considering what they have in the secondary. Also think Keelan Russell or Austin Mack can be very capable. I'm just still worried about this offensive line and rushing attack, and I think that's kind of limiting my upside overall for this team.
No, I think that's completely fair, Steven. So what would be your best case scenario for the Crimson Tide?
Mike, so I kind of goofed up. I should have said it's limiting my upside on my prediction, but I actually went pretty optimistic on the best case scenario, and you can call me crazy. I actually went 11-1 for best case scenario. Hear me out. They get Georgia at home. They get Texas A&M at home. If you don't think LSU takes that step forward, they've had the edge in that series. I mean, this schedule's pretty manageable. East Carolina, Kentucky, Florida State, South Carolina, Mississippi State. You can easily talk yourself into a lot of wins on this schedule. They've had the edge on Georgia. So I know that's ultra, ultra optimistic. But if things hit for Alabama on the depth chart wise, the schedule's pretty manageable, Mike.
Well, you're right, Stephen, but you've kind of forgot something very important you just said. DeBoer loses a game he shouldn't. So I'm going 10-2, best case scenario, because he'll whiff on one of these bad boys. You can count my word on it. So best case, 10-2. So what is the official record, Stephen? I've been very public with this. 4-loss DeBoer. 8-4. Come on, Dan. I think that's my record prediction for Alabama this year. 8-4.
I'm going a little bit more optimistic, Mike. I'm going 9-3. I think Keelan Russell or Austin Mack kind of elevates the offense. The run game's a little bit better, not good enough, but between the defense and the quarterback play, I think Alabama gets to 9-3. Not in the college football playoff, but the schedule does give them an opportunity to get back if they answer those questions.
Okay. Yeah, I don't hate it, Stephen. I don't hate it. Because I'm afraid I'm way off on this team, but remains to be seen. Remains to be seen. You know what doesn't remain to be seen, Stephen? The savings you can get at SeatGeek by going over there, SeatGeek.com, promo code SEC10 to get you 10% off. Use this promo code so I can buy a camera that works. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? So go check them out, SeatGeek.com, promo code SEC10 to get 10% off your tickets. You're going to get tickets anyway, Stephen. You're going to these games, you're going to a concert. Hell, I got to buy tickets to go see the Odyssey because apparently it's sold out 2 weeks in a row. I still have not been able to get my tickets. But if you are like me and you need your tickets to your performances, your music, obviously all the sports, not just college football, but NFL and basketball, that's still a thing. World Cup, when it was here. You buy your tickets for the next World Cup, you'll be 4 years ahead of time. So go check them out. SeatGeek.com, promo code SEC10 to get 10% off. help us buy equipment that works.
I like that September 12th game, Alabama at Kentucky. I'm very intrigued by both teams. So I bet SeatGeek can hook us up with a great discount, Mike, for that game, because that's Will Stein's SEC opener. Pretty important game for Kalen DeBoer. I think that'd be a good opportunity to use that SeatGeek promo code there.
I think so, Stephen. I also think my other favorite, Stephen, has chimed in.
Showing up for them boys in Tuscaloosa. It's Stephen Up. Roll Tide.
Thank you, Stephen Up. Always appreciate Lassan's analysis. Glad to hear some football talk. We appreciate you, Stephen Up.
Appreciate you, Stephen Up. Thanks as always for showing up.
I never know where to look. I'm so used to looking here, but now I'm looking here. It's a nightmare over here. But hey, we're gonna get through it.
You're overcoming adversity, my friend. See, this is like fall practice. Your camera's a little bit upset about that NIL deal, but you're gonna take care of that. But you're overcoming adversity. It's part of getting ready for the 2026 season, right?
My worst case record is tonight. So there it is. All right, Steven, let us do who would you like to do next? Any team in particular?
You want to do Arkansas?
Oh, yeah. Arkansas. So over under 4.5 for them Razorbacks. I believe that's Central Alabama, I think. Something. Purple Lions. I don't know what they are. But
North Alabama. Yeah.
North Alabama. Okay, North Alabama. You're getting smoked September 5th. Then at Utah, Georgia at home, Tulsa at home, at A&M, Tennessee at home, at Vanderbilt. Then you got your bye. Got Missouri at home, at Auburn, Carolina at home, at Texas, and then LSU. And I forgot all about it, Stephen. I'm so frazzled with this camera. So we got all these win-loss tosses. I only have 2 games as likely wins. Northern Alabama, Tulsa. And then likely losses, Georgia, at A&M. Missouri they can't beat to save their life. At Texas. And LSU, that means I got a bunch of toss-ups at Utah, Tennessee, which they've beaten 4 out of the last 5. Arkansas has. At Vanderbilt, at Auburn, South Carolina. Any of these you disagree with?
No disagreement, Mike. I mean, unfortunately, I hate to be Mr. Negative. I do think there's 2 guaranteed wins on that schedule. And kind of depending on how you think this team develops, I think you can kind of talk yourself into a couple wins maybe in SEC play. But that trip out to Utah, going to be a massive, massive test for this team. That's going to give us a great idea of how far along Arkansas is under Ryan Silverfield. But man, this is a very, very hard schedule for a team that's in full rebuild mode. So it's tough to find a bunch of guaranteed victories here.
All right, so I hate to even ask this, Stephen. I hate to ask it. What would be your worst case for Arkansas?
Man, I hate to do this. It's grim. It's 2-10 because you just beat, North Alabama and you beat Tulsa. Tulsa should be a much improved team out of the American, so it is a little bit dangerous. We've seen Arkansas have some trouble, especially under Chad Morris. Look at that Western Kentucky game, with group of 6 opponents. But realistically, Mike, I think if I'm doing which games am I locked in, guaranteed, it would agree with your list. North Alabama and Tulsa, those 2 are guaranteed victories. I think Utah is closer, like you said, to a toss-up. I'd probably put that in the Utah column because I do think Salt Lake City, with what Utah is coming back, is a tough place to play. If you want to, kind of be optimistic too, it's really hard to go winless in the SEC. Now, there's one more chance now with 9 games. We have seen Arkansas and Mississippi State both struggle to win SEC games, but at the same time, you get Missouri, you play South Carolina at your place late in the year. Maybe you could talk yourself into an SEC win, but realistically, I think 2-10 is probably the worst case scenario here.
I guess you haven't heard, Stephen. Silverfield's got a hot wife. That's what he said. So he says he can coach, but no, you're exactly right. 2-10, despite what his wife may look like. I don't know how that helps, but he claims it does. So 2-10, I agree 100%. Worst case. But the worst is not going to happen, Stephen. What's the best case for them Razorbacks in the debut era of Ryan Silverfield?
Let's be optimistic, Mike. 6-6 and a bowl game, right? What if Arkansas goes on the
Yeah.
road and beat Utah? What if they beat Vanderbilt, Missouri, South Carolina? I think it's going to be tough to beat LSU and Texas and Tennessee and A&M, but maybe they can find their way to 6 wins in a bowl game. I think that's the best case scenario for this team, don't you?
I think you nailed it, Stephen. That's exactly what I have, 6-6. And if they do it, hell, I think old Silverfield, he might be SEC Coach of the Year if he can get the Razorbacks to 6 wins in his debut season.
Yeah, I mean, if he would certainly get consideration because everybody's going to pick this team at like 2-10, 3-9, 4-8, right? And if you get to 6-6 or 7-5, I mean, just go ahead and ship the SEC Coach of the Year trophy down there to Fayetteville.
All right, so what would be your official record prediction for them Hogs?
I'm taking 3-9, Mike. I think they find a win somewhere in the SEC. I think they win those 2 games we talked about in non-conference play. I think they stumble against Utah, but they find another win somewhere and get to 3-9 in Ryan Silverfield's first year.
Yeah, I hate to say it, Steve. How depressing, but I think you've absolutely nailed it. I think it is 3-9. That would be my projected record for Arkansas right now.
It's hard to be too much more optimistic, isn't it? And I hate to be Mr. Negative. I'm just trying to realistically look at the question marks in the schedule, and I could almost talk myself into, okay, they probably pick up an upset somewhere along the way, but you're going to have to require multiple upsets in order to get to that 6-6.
Shane's chimed into the comments. He said it'll probably be Tennessee that they beat.
Right. Yeah. Right. It is. In Fayetteville, right?
It is. So, again, that would be 5 out of 6 wins for Arkansas over Tennessee. That'd be damn brutal. Shout out Chicken. Camera fun. Boomer, Suitor. Appreciate you, buddy. Give me that camera. I'm so pissed off. I don't want to. This is supposed to be a nice camera. I think I've unplugged something and I didn't realize it. And then I've just got to figure out how to plug it back in. So I'm sure it's damn user error.
Mike, to be fair, you have been one busy man the last week or so with the travel to SEC Media Days. So I think technical issues are bound to happen, my friend.
I should have cousin Shane come over and help with IT support. And that'll really get us going. You know what?
You think cousin Shane could get it fixed tonight?
No.
Right.
But I'll tell you, Stephen, I think
we'd be like him waiting for Drake to come back for SEC Media Days.
What I think will get fixed, Stephen, is Auburn under Alex Golish. Over under 6.5 this year, the debut season on the Plains. They got Baylor in Atlanta, Southern Miss at home, Florida at home, at Vanderbilt also at home. 3 home games after the Baylor game. At Tennessee, then they get their bye. At Georgia, LSU at home, at Ole Miss, Arkansas at home, Mississippi State on the road, Samford at home, and then at Alabama. Stephen, do you agree with this win-loss toss for the Auburn Tigers? We got Baylor, Southern Miss, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, and Samford as wins. Toss-ups, Florida at home, at Tennessee, at Ole Miss, at Mississippi State, and then 3 likely losses at Georgia, LSU at home, at Alabama. Any of those you disagree with?
I'll be a little bit of a contrarian on 2 games here, and call me crazy, but the Vanderbilt game, I could see it being more in the toss-up category. Now, Diego Pavia is not there, so that's probably a good thing for Auburn this year. Also, what about the season finale against Alabama being closer to a toss-up? And here's my thinking. I'm actually kind of putting myself into kind of your position here. And I know you're a little bit down on Alabama. I'm not necessarily maybe as down as you are. But if you're down on Alabama and you think Auburn is under Golish like Byron Brown and this offense takes off, why would they not be able to, in a rivalry game where we know crazy things happen, couldn't that be a toss-up too?
No, I think you're right. I think you're very right, Stephen. But Yeah, so maybe I may have missed the mark on that one. I just don't know what the heck to expect with this Auburn team with so much transition, and now we're getting to Alex Golish, who I think is I think I'd be a coaching upgrade over Hugh Freeze, but I know Golish is a massive upgrade here. So what will that provide us this year? I don't know. This is just one of the hardest teams to peg. I could see them being in the playoff race by the end of the year. I could see them, being decimated by the end of October because of that schedule. So where are we at, Stephen? Worst case scenario in your mind for the Auburn Tigers this year?
I'm going to be Mr. Negative here. I'm going to go 3-9.
Oh,
Because what if DJ Lagway is really, really good for Baylor in the season opener? Dave Aranda's very much on the hot seat, so they need to win that game if you're Baylor. But let's just say Auburn goes 2-1 in non-conference play, and you start looking at how the schedule breaks down. Like, what if they lose to Florida, Vanderbilt? Then you get into the Tennessee, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, and then so at the end of the season, Arkansas is the only SEC win, and you go on the road to Mississippi State and Alabama. So that is the absolute worst case. I mean, Mike, you said it best. This team is a wild card. It feels like almost like Auburn and LSU are the SEC's biggest wild cards every year, and certainly the case this year with Auburn. So I think 3-9 is worst case. That's absolute worst case scenario, though.
Oh, I think you're even a little low, but I get your logic there, Stephen. I went 4-8. So again, we're not that off here, but yeah, if kind of the wheels fall off, the defense doesn't come together after losing some pieces. Again, I think they'll be fine on that side of the football. And maybe if Byron Brown and this South Florida Bulls don't adjust to life in the SEC, I think 4-8 is as low as we go.
When you look at Auburn's schedule, don't you think it's kind of important for this team to really make up some ground early in the year? Because it kind of feels like I kind of divided their schedule into thirds. The first half with Baylor, Southern Miss, Florida, Vanderbilt, they could be 4-0, but then they could lose to Tennessee, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, but they could also win or split, the last two. You could go 3-1, 2-2, certainly going to beat Samford in those last four games. But it kind of feels like to me, if I'm just thinking about where is Auburn going to finish in the SEC, Florida and Vanderbilt at home and a very beatable Baylor team in the opener is about as favorable as you could ask for Alex Golish in his first year. So it's kind of like if you can get some good things going, you got a chance to really kind of open it up as you get into the heart of SEC play.
No, I think you're right, Stephen. And again, the continuity on the offensive side of the football, the continuity bringing back DJ Durkin would kind of lead you to believe that they could start pretty strong that first month of the season. So, yeah, I think that's an excellent point there.
I think best case scenario, they could start 4-0. Maybe you pick up a couple of W's in the middle. Maybe, like you said, you're blending that great defense, and we know Alex Golish can produce offenses. So you're sort of blending those two things. A top half of the SEC defense, even if it steps back, to go with a much more productive offense. I love the fact that you have so many guys who played in that system. You can hit the ground running. So that's kind of why I would be optimistic about Auburn's chances to start 4-0. Then it gets a little harder, but also by November, these preseason question marks about offensive line, corner, run, receiver, wherever they may be when you come into this year, they should be solved. And that gives Auburn a chance to kind of finish out the year on a high note too.
Right. So where would you have it best case scenario for Auburn this fall?
Mike, I went 8-4 best case scenario. I just think that middle stretch is too hard with Tennessee, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, and then of course throw in the game against Alabama late. Also, that road trip to Mississippi State I think is going to be difficult on November 14th. So I think best case scenario, 8-4. This means the offense hits, defense picks up where they left off, and Alex Golish is probably in consideration for SEC Coach of the Year if they go 8-4.
Yeah, but he'll be in even more consideration, Stephen. If they go 9-3, come on. That's what I got. Best case scenario, Auburn 9-3. They'd have to probably win the Iron Bowl, and they'd have to obviously win one of those games in the middle maybe at Tennessee, maybe LSU at home. It's a tall ask to get that done, but I think best case scenario, I think Auburn can get 9-3.
Always dangerous to assume best case scenario works out for a team. So it's like, you could talk yourself into like that Tennessee game. Like, okay, what if Tennessee is still having defensive issues and Byron Brown gets on a roll and easily puts up big numbers against Tennessee? What if Alabama's rushing attack, offensive line is still an issue? So these games, I think on paper I think you have it framed well with the win, loss, and toss up. But those games could become much more winnable or toss up by November or even October. So going to be interesting. I think Auburn with Byron Brown in this offense, one of the more fascinating teams in the SEC this year.
Hey, shout out to JS Productions. Interesting comment here, Stephen. Arkansas should be a toss. They win 9 out of 10, but Arkansas finds that one every other year. And, believe it or not, Stephen, if you go back and look at this annual series, the road team has won 4 in a row. That's one of the weirder stats in the Southeastern Conference right now. But so that would lead me to believe that Arkansas is going to win this year. But, of course, that means nothing for this year. But just an interesting quirk with these two.
Isn't it going to be interesting in a couple years to think about all the historical trends and data and how maybe that some of that might be upended by like the portal and I think kind of this was the conversation at SEC Media Days with all these rosters changing. You got 70 something new players. Like, what does last year mean really? And that's going to be, I think as we go forward, I'll be interested to see if some of these trends like that keep up.
All right. So what will be your record prediction official for the Auburn Tigers, Stephen?
I'm going 6-6, Mike. I think they find a way to get to a bowl game. I mentioned it, the middle portion of that schedule is hard. I'm not sure they get past Florida on September 19th. And of course, I mentioned it at Mississippi State, at Alabama late. So I'm going 6-6, but this is a much improved team and they go bowling and the offense is better with Alex Golesh and Byron Brown in place.
Well, Stephen, I don't hate it. But I've been one digit higher on all of these, and I shall be once again. I'm saying 7-5. It's kind of weird to think 7-5 would be a good record for Auburn, but I believe they've had 5 consecutive losing seasons. So 7-5 would be a big time step in the right direction, not where we want to be, but a good place, a good foundational year for old Alex Golesh. I think 7-5. I'd take it if I was an Auburn fan. Debut season.
Heck yeah. I think based upon the disaster that you had under Hugh Freeze, 7-5 means like we talked about, the offense is better, defense under DJ Durkin, setting the foundation for much better things in 2027. So yeah, if I'm an Auburn fan, I'm taking that.
All right. How about the Florida Gators, Stephen? Over under 7.5. Here's their schedule. FAU at home. Campbell. Yep, Campbell, the Camels at home. At Auburn. Huge game there. Ole Miss at home. At Missouri. South Carolina at home. At Texas. Then they get their bye week. They got Georgia in Atlanta this year. A little different. Oklahoma at home. At Kentucky. Vanderbilt at home. And at Florida State. So that's your record for the Florida Gators, Stephen. And we had the win-loss toss broken down like this of FAU and Campbell, South Carolina at home, at Kentucky, Vanderbilt at home, and at Florida State as the likely wins. We've got at Texas, Georgia and Atlanta, and Oklahoma at home, likely losses, while we've got at Auburn, Ole Miss at home, at Mizzou as likely toss-ups. So any of these you disagree with?
I might move Oklahoma into the toss-up category. Mm-hmm. I think Oklahoma is a much better team, but I do think this Florida team at home, if you're like me, you're thinking Florida's going to be better this year. Yeah. I think there's a chance they could pull off the upset. Call me crazy, Mike.
No, I don't think that's crazy at all, Stephen. I don't think that's crazy at all. And I also don't think it's crazy because I've seen some criticism online of people hyping up the Gators. as well. You guys do this every year because we are guilty. We are guilty. But hey, eventually it's got to hit, right? And now that they got rid of the problem, old Billy, boring ass Napier, and got Wild Man Summerall back there, I think this is a recipe for one of the more improved programs in the Southeastern Conference this year. Am I crazy?
Not at all, Mike. I think if I'm going to buy stock in teams, I like teams that have talent and a coaching upgrade. And Florida still has a lot of talent in the program for all the things that Billy Napier did wrong. And we could do a whole show on those things. He recruited some pretty good players to Gainesville. See the Texas game last year and what they were able to do in the passing game to Texas defense. And I like what John Summerall's done in the portal. But most importantly, Mike, I know it's a lower level of ball, but John Summerall led Troy to the Sun Belt Championship game twice. He took Tulane twice. Tulane is investing at a high level for G6, but that is still a pretty hard job. And he took it over after Willie Fritz did a good job there too. But Mike, I think there's a track record of Summerall elevating the talent in the program to go to like the conference championship, to be in the college football playoff. I think we have a much better track record this time. Like Napier kind of slow built Louisiana. I think there's a track record now of Summerall coming in 2 places and winning right away. And that's why I've got confidence that the pieces are there. The coaching staff just needs to do a better job of getting more out of them. And I think that's why I buy John Summerall in Florida this year.
Okay, well, that being said, Stephen, what would be, you said a lot of good things. What would be the worst case for the Gators?
6-6, I think. This would be Florida State ends up being a surprise team. Maybe your only wins in SEC play are Kentucky and Vanderbilt. You're kind of struggling, fighting to get to bowl eligibility. The offensive line, quarterback play is still an issue. So I would say 6-6, Mike. I think it's absolute worst case scenario for this team.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. That's exactly what I have for the worst case for the Florida Gators. And then how about the best case? What do you got there for the Gators?
Call me crazy, Mike. Here we are putting our hand on the burner, right? Give me 10-2. You get Ole Miss, you get Oklahoma, you get South Carolina in the swamp. Texas and Georgia are the hardest games outside of that scenario. So if you just think Florida loses those 2, you get 3 of your biggest games at home. Yes, Auburn, Missouri on the road are tough, and we'll see what happens with Florida State. I don't think they're going to be very good this year, and they might be a shell of their team by the time they fired Mike Norvell by October. So Mike, 10-2. I'm pretty optimistic, aren't I?
Wow, yeah. That's even higher than I anticipated you'd say, Stephen. So I'm thinking best case 9-3. But maybe, just maybe, you could convince me, Stephen, 10-2. But I think I'm going to stick with my 9-3 for now. It's so easy to get enamored with a new coach and all the change and all the positive that comes with it. But I still think there's a game where maybe they slip up, if that makes sense, where just because of the transition, everybody's learning that in Gainesville, in just so many regards, new offense, new defense. I think 9-3 is a heck of a year and maybe even a playoff year, but give me best case 9-3.
I think you said something there, Mike, that's really important when it comes to like all of the new pieces. I think it's very easy to talk yourself into saying this is going to hit, when I think the track record we've seen is that a lot of times it's more start, stop. It works, but maybe it takes some time to get there. So I think that's kind of the one thing that worries me, is that maybe Florida's like a slower build and they're peaking at the end of the year to like an 8-4. That would kind of take away the best case scenario. But I would be pretty stunned, I think, if they finish like a 5-7 or 6-6, absent like a major like hit of injuries for this team.
Mm-hmm. All right. So what would be your official record for the Florida Gators?
I'm going to split the difference on best and worst case scenario. I'm going to take 8-4. I tried to talk myself into 9-3, Mike. I couldn't do it. I got to go 8-4 for the Florida Gators.
Okay. No, that's exactly what I said. So again, I mean, 8-4, That's a lot better than they have been here lately. So that is confidence in John Summerall and the talent that was left by old boring Billy. I don't know if Florida fans would be happy, but again, I think they would accept 8-4 with the expectation that the year 2 will be a nice springboard to perhaps contending for an SEC title.
What do you think the odds are that Florida beats Ole Miss or Oklahoma this year?
50-50.
Yeah, and I like the fact, if I'm a Florida fan, that you get Ole Miss a week after they play LSU. That's got to be like the biggest like trap game in the world. The whole LSU Lane Kiffin for weeks, and then you got to go to Gainesville. That seems like a nightmare scenario. I think Oklahoma later in the year, a little more isolated on the schedule. That's probably a lot tougher. But I think if you're thinking optimistic here, in this Florida team, the talent hits. They go 8-4, maybe 9-3. Looking ahead, what they're doing on the recruiting trail, it's very easy. And again, they've got to prove it. It's very easy to talk yourself into buying stock in this team in 27 and beyond.
Mm-hmm. Okay, how about another team that Stephen could go any number of ways here. How about South Carolina? Ooh, Gamecocks 6.5 over under. Kent State at home, Towson at home, Mississippi State at home, at Bama, Kentucky at home, at Florida. Then you get their bye. Tennessee at home, at Oklahoma, A&M at home, at Arkansas, Georgia at home, at Clemson. Ooh, what do you think about this one, Stephen? And we've got the win-loss toss here. I got likely wins: Kent State, Towson, Mississippi State, Kentucky, and Arkansas. Toss-ups: at Bama, at Florida, Tennessee, at A&M, at Clemson, and likely losses: at Oklahoma, Georgia at home. You disagree with any of those?
Would you consider maybe moving like Mississippi State and Kentucky into more of a toss-up category? Only reason being, hey, South Carolina only won 4 games last year. What if things aren't better? Mississippi State could be better. Kentucky could be better. Am I too crazy on that one?
I think you're a little crazy, Stephen, because what are we in year 5, year 6, whatever with Beamer? We can't be losing to Will Stein year 1 at home. We can't be losing to Jeff Lebby, sorry ass. I don't care if he's been there 30 years. You cannot, if you're fighting for your job, you cannot lose to Mississippi State at home ever. I don't think is acceptable if you're Carolina. So no, I think those are must wins, and I don't think the Carolina fans will even. I mean, you'll celebrate them, but you'll be like, "Good, we're supposed to do that,"
Yeah, man, I'm gonna miss the Sunglasses Bowl this year. Man, I think maybe I'm just a little bit higher on Mississippi State. I think just maybe I'm buying like a ton of stock in Kamario Taylor and just thinking that, okay, if South Carolina doesn't improve on offense, maybe it's a vulnerable matchup. But Mike, with those games at home, they have to be wins. Maybe at Arkansas later in the year it gets a little tricky if South Carolina's offense is not better. But I think you're right in the bigger point is Mississippi State, Kentucky, and Arkansas, 3 of the teams picked at the bottom of the SEC by most people. You have to get these games with Kent State and Towson to give yourself a chance to at least get back into the bowl game.
All right, so what would be a worst case, you think, for the Gamecocks, Stephen?
Mike, I'm going to take 4-8 because it would match kind of what happened last year. But this would be the worst case. Like, you beat Kent State, you beat Towson, you beat Kentucky and Mississippi State, but suddenly Arkansas gets better during the season. You lose to Clemson. It's just hard to pick off anybody else, even though I think Shane Beamer and the South Carolina team probably will find an upset at home. I'll go 4-8, absolute worst case scenario.
I'm going to go say 5-7. So I think a little bit higher than you. And again, this is worst case, but I think Carolina's just so tricky, Stephen, where, we sit here and we're like, this is a win, this is a loss. I mean, all the ones that are like losses, I think they can play with anybody.
Yeah.
And even the ones where we're saying could be wins, they could could implode and blow a game. You know what I mean? So it's so hard to project them, but I think the worst they could do with this talent is 5-7.
Mike, I think when you just look at their schedule too, Tennessee, Texas A&M, I think it's a little bit bigger of a leap to beat Georgia, but we saw South Carolina nearly go on the road and beat Texas A&M last season. So, this Williams-Brice is a tough place to play, especially at night. Like if you can catch one of these opponents on the right timing, I mean, it wouldn't stun me. I mean, we saw, sorry, Mike and cousin Shane, what South Carolina could do to Tennessee there at home. We also saw them upset Texas A&M before. So, I mean, I can easily talk myself into that. There's a lot of toss-ups on the schedule, kind of like you showed with the schedule. And there's also games like if this doesn't work out offensively, a lot of these toss-ups become much more in the loss category and putting them on that 5-7 track and outside of a bowl game again.
Okay, so what would your best case for Carolina be?
I'm going 9-3, Mike. I think this team, when you look at the road schedule, like at Alabama, at Florida, at Oklahoma, Georgia, if this offense hits and Lenora Sellers gets back to being the quarterback we saw in 2024, the offensive line provides good protection. They're able to get some balance. I think they could pick off an upset or two. I think they win all these toss-up games we're talking about, and they get to 9-3, top 25. Not quite the college football playoff, but they're back in the top 25 if that's the case.
I think you nailed this one, Stephen. I've got 9-3 too as the best case scenario for the South Carolina Gamecocks. They did it a couple years ago. Of course, now it's a little bit trickier with an additional Southeastern Conference game, but they've got a lot of high-end talent, and if Kendall Browse clicks, I think that's on the table. So 9-3, and I'll go a step further, Stephen. Again, if I think 9-3 is the best they could do, I got them going 8-4. So I think they could get close to maximizing the talent they have on this roster. What do you think is your official record prediction for Carolina?
I went one step below that. I went 7-5 with this team. It was close, 7-5 or 8-4. If I had a little more confidence in the offensive line, I could probably talk myself into 8-4.
Yeah, I think I am overlooking that, but we can make the case that the offensive line is a weakness for about half of these teams.
Sure,
you know what?
very true. Yeah.
I love the fact that Carolina attacked it. I believe they brought in 8 transfers. Now, are those all going to hit? Probably not, but if we get 5 of them, I mean, I'll take it. So I like the fact that they're spending. They identify a weakness and they're not standing pat. I love that about Carolina this offseason.
Yeah, I think it's good that they basically reset everything kind of offensively. Like I like that about Shane Beamer, is like being super aggressive and saying like, look, can't hire any more Mike Shulas or anybody else on the offense. You got to get this right. And it feels like they got it right. I actually think I'd be higher on my prediction if I knew like, hey, Jacarius Speak is going to be a healthy tackle for every game this year. We knew what we were getting out of Dylan Stewart. Feels like the injury report's trending optimistic, but until I see it on the field, I'm going to be a little bit leery of those injury reports.
All right, how about Ole Miss, Steven? 7.5 is projected over or win total there, according to the sports books. We've got Louisville and Nashville's the opener. That's a very interesting opener for Ole Miss and Pete Golding. Charlotte at home, LSU at home, at Florida. Then they get their early bye. At Vanderbilt, Missouri at home, at Texas, Auburn at home, Georgia at home, at Oklahoma, Wofford at home, Mississippi State. Man, what a tough schedule for Pete and company. I've got the likely wins. I got Charlotte, at Florida, at Vanderbilt, Missouri, Auburn, Wofford, Mississippi State, toss-ups, Louisville, LSU, Georgia, all those at home, and then likely losses at Texas, at Oklahoma. Would you disagree with any of those?
If Ole Miss is as good as last year, or maybe some of the predictions that think Ole Miss can maybe win the national title this year, Mike, I mean, isn't November 14th against Oklahoma much more of a toss-up game, especially since they won last year. Now, I know different teams, different years, but that would be the only one. Like, I might put that in the toss-up category, but the rest of them look pretty good to me. This is the schedule breaks in the kind of, you can kind of easily separate the big and kind of toss-up matchups for Ole Miss.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild with this rotation of scheduling we're getting. It's so different. It's kind of hard. I've not seen a lot of these teams play each other, right? I mean, I guess we have seen Florida and Ole Miss here in recent years, but it almost feels like a non-conference game because they hardly ever played previous years. Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri. Guess we've seen them battle Georgia a bunch, but this is just it's going to take some getting used to in this new look SEC. But what would you say is your worst case record prediction for Ole Miss year one, Pete Golding?
I think 7-5, because that would mean you lose to like LSU, Texas, Georgia, Oklahoma. You stumble against a Florida, maybe even Louisville. Like all of the toss-ups, you lose those, plus maybe some of the ones that maybe aren't necessarily in the toss-up category, but you could get picked off by a Louisville in the season opener. Then of course, I mentioned the Florida game and how it sets up for Ole Miss. So that's absolute worst case scenario. I'd say 7-5 for Ole Miss.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. That's exactly what I have. And man, what a huge disappointment that would be. But again, I'm saying worst case here after winning 13 games last year. How about the best case scenario for the Ole Miss Rebels?
Mike, I think this one's pretty easy. I think it's 11-1. I don't think any team in the SEC is going to go undefeated. So I think you kind of put them in the kind of category of if they are good enough to compete for the playoff and national championship and they pick up where they left off, it's losing one time. It's potentially winning the SEC. So I'm going to go 11-1.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. So you're a little bit higher than I am, Stephen, on this one. I said 10-2, just given some of these games at Texas, at Oklahoma, Georgia, LSU. I mean, it's going to be difficult, but 10-2 would cement you right back in the college football playoff. No doubt about it. So, man, 11-1, but hey, I'd love to see it because that would mean that. Do you think Pete Golding coach of the year if they're 11-1?
I kind of think so. I think if he's 11-1, picking up where Kiffin left off, you're probably talking about Ole Miss in the SEC championship game, unless they lose some kind of convoluted tiebreaker. I would say probably, coach of the year, Mike. I think that's definitely the territory he needs to get to. And I think Pete Golding's already kind of answered a lot of doubters. Maybe not everybody, but I think the playoff showing was a strong start. Now it's his team. He's in the the driver's seat for all year. I'm curious to see like where this program goes. But 11-1, I think he gets coach of the year.
All right. So what would be your official record prediction for Ole Miss this season?
I'm going 9-3, Mike. I wrestled with this one with the LSU prediction and the Oklahoma and Texas A&M. I feel like I may be off at 10-2, 9-3. I'm trying to shift these around. I'm going 9-3, just missing the college football playoff. I'll stick with what I had in the magazine.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Stephen. That's exactly what I said as well, 9-3, and that's going to be fascinating. Whether maybe this is the team that makes the college football playoff based on a 9-3. We'll have to see how those 9 look, of course, how those 3 look. But if they're all close, maybe they get the benefit of the doubt. I mean, they went pretty damn far last year in the playoffs. I know that doesn't have anything to do with it, but I don't understand the committee logic. So they would be right on that cut line one way or another. Any chance this is a playoff team at 9-3?
Mike, I just came up with the perfect scenario for this discussion. So Ole Miss loses to Texas, Georgia, and Oklahoma, finishes 9-3, but needs LSU to keep winning later in the season to pump up. So Ole Miss has to be the biggest Lane Kiffin fan to kind of make that a marquee win, and they're fighting for the last playoff spot. So I think they could be 9-3 and in the college football playoff based upon that schedule.
Yeah, I'd love it. That'd be hilarious. Well, how about we haven't done A&M, Stephen? This is another one that is a little bit hard to project because they've had a lot of turnover in the coaching and on the offensive line as well. The over-under's 8.5. They got, Missouri State at home, Arizona State, Kentucky, all those at home. 3 home games to open the season. That must be nice. At LSU, Arkansas at home, at Mizzou, Citadel at home, and then at Alabama. Then they get the bye. They're at Carolina, Tennessee at home, at Oklahoma, mighty Texas. Over under 8.5. And what I have here, Stephen, as the likely wins-loss toss, I got basically all the home games is Missouri State, Arizona State, Kentucky, Arkansas, at Mizzou, Citadel, at Carolina. Those are my likely wins. I got the toss-ups as at LSU, at Alabama, and at Oklahoma, and a likely loss, Texas, because they just can't beat them Texas boys. So until they do it, I got to see it. Would you disagree with any of these?
How close did you come to putting Texas in the toss-up category?
I'll never do it again, Steve, until they beat them.
That's probably the one that I would flip. I'd put that in the toss-up category. It would not surprise me at all if Texas A&M wins that game this year. Like Texas could be, it could be like a reversal of where, Texas is the higher ranked team going on the road to College Station. And especially, Mike, by November, I think A&M is going to sort out some of their, offensive line, fill out the defensive line, all those pieces. So I think A&M is going to be much more dangerous, plus in a rivalry, plus the motivation. That would probably be a toss-up for me, but no disagreement on the others.
Okay, no, I think that's fair. I'm just kind of, it's funny, Stephen. These so sensitive Texas people, they never give you credit for doing stuff like this. They just see everything else you say about it. But I digress. All right, so what is the worst case scenario, Stephen, for old A&M? Worst case record, year 3, Mike Elko.
Mike, I think it's 7-5. I think the floor for this team is pretty high, but the schedule does have a lot of potential like landmines. I mean, you go to LSU early, you got Alabama on the road, at Oklahoma, the game against Texas. What if they lose like a surprise upset? Like what if Missouri's maybe better than we think and Missouri picks off Texas A&M? So I'm kind of building in 7-5 if they lose those high profile toss-up games plus an upset somewhere.
Yeah, I think you absolutely nailed it, Stephen. That's exactly what I said. I could have easily made the 8-4 joke, but again, we're saying worst case scenario here. I don't think they're going 7-5, but I think there's a path there with the what is on paper a very difficult schedule. In particular, again, you got to remember I'm very high on Tennessee. I have them as a playoff team. I think the last 3 teams A&M faces, I have all 3 of those as playoff contenders, or playoff teams. So in several more as contenders, Carolina, LSU, maybe if everything breaks right for Bama. But again, just a very difficult slate. Worst case, 7-5. How about best case, Stephen, for A&M? What do you got there?
I got 10-2, Mike. I think this team with the 9-game slate, with some of the road trips you mentioned, like I think 3 of their last 5 games are on the road. Plus we know the success that Texas has had recently. I think they're going to stumble a couple times, but I still think best case scenario is getting back to the playoff, double-digit wins, and that's why I like 10-2.
Yep. Once again, see, man, you're a smart guy, Steve. I never tell you that. 10-2, best case, definitely. I agree with that. I know they just won 11, but it's very difficult not to see at least some step back given what they've lost. I know they're trying to reload and prove they could do that, but man, adding a conference game and a lot more difficult road games. I mean, heck, they could be 10-2. Let me put it this way, Stephen. Is there a believable scenario where A&M goes 10-2 this season and they're better than they were last year at 11-1?
I think that definitely could be true, because wasn't that the knock last year on A&M, was that the schedule was light and they weren't a
Right.
product of the schedule, but they got a lot of grief for it during the year. So yes, I could, Mike, we could maybe even argue 9-3 given the schedule too.
Yep, I think so. All right, so what is your official record prediction for them Aggies?
Mike, I'm sticking with what I had in the magazine. I'm taking A&M to make the playoff, but they are the 9-3 team that gets into the playoff as maybe like the last non-conference. A&M, LSU, Ole Miss fighting for that last spot. So 9-3 college football playoff for A&M.
Okay, I like it, Stephen. Because I got 9-3. I have A&M out of the playoff, but I do have them 5th. So if the SEC gets 5 in, like they did last year, give me A&M to get into the college football playoff. I wish the SEC would get 6 or 7 in, but I don't know. I don't know if we'll do that every year, but hopefully we do. But so I have them right there on that bubble, 9-3. That's where I got A&M this year.
I'm a little surprised you didn't have 5. I thought you would stick with the 5 from last season this year. But Mike, I think this is kind of the interesting thing is we're talking about these teams, and like I like to look at them in tiers, and you kind of look at Oklahoma, Texas A&M, like there's some offensive uncertainty for both, like offensive line for Oklahoma, like Mateer's step forward, like same thing with Marcel Reed. Saw a lot of positivity from Marcel Reed at media days too, like getting him on the move, using his mobility, maybe throwing outside the pocket. So I think A&M's got the right, approach coming on offense. Still think, offensive line, OC turnover, still a lot of questions, but somebody, and it may be Florida, maybe it's Auburn, maybe somebody is going to come out of that next tier of teams, and maybe they bump an A&M or Oklahoma or Ole Miss or LSU out of the playoff. I don't think we should assume that the best case or simplest path as last year's standings are going to repeat this year.
Hey, how about, and I think that's an excellent point, Stephen, and maybe one of those teams that jumps up, the Missouri Tigers. How about that, Stephen? The record over-under prediction for Mizzou is 6.5. They open the season, gets peanut butter on a Thursday or Friday. I can't remember, one of those. Kansas at Little K, Kansas. Troy at home. Mississippi State on the road. Florida at home. A&M at home. At Ole Miss. Then they get their bye for Arkansas on the road. Texas at home. At Georgia. Kentucky at home. Oklahoma at home. And here's where we got the win, loss, or toss for the Missouri Tigers, Stephen. A lot of wins there, I think. Peanut butter, Little K, Kansas, Troy, at Mississippi State, Florida at home, at Arkansas, Kentucky. Those are the likely wins. A lot of toss-ups too, though. A&M at home, at Ole Miss, Texas, and Oklahoma, with only one likely loss at Georgia. Would you disagree with any of those selections?
I would put Florida in the toss-up category. And Mike, you can call me crazy. I guess I'm just ultra high on Kamario Taylor tonight. I might put that game against Mississippi State in the toss-up category because, and this is, Jamal Roberts is very good, but what if Ahmad Hardy's not back by that point? You're going on the road in the SEC for your first, game of conference play. Mississippi State, I think is going to be a lot better. Maybe they could pick off a Missouri. So I might put that one in the toss-up category, but I think you're on the right track with those picks.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I don't hate it. I think it just depends on what day those teams decide to show up this season, right. and that's probably going to be the case for a lot of these teams this fall. Now, when it comes to worst case scenario for the Missouri Tigers, where would you lean there, Stephen?
I think the floor is pretty high for this team, Mike, and obviously have some questions at the same time, like defense, 0 returning starters. It looks like Josh Atkins is not going to make it back anytime soon, so they're going to have to figure out the offensive line. We've talked about Ahmad Hardy and, of course, Austin Simmons and what step forwards. But I say all that, Mike, and I think there's a trust factor here that, okay, if this goes wrong, I still think Missouri gets to 6-6 and gets to a bowl game in a worst case scenario.
Okay, well, I disagree, Stephen. I
Uh-oh.
think worst case, give me 5 and 7. Ooh.
No wonder
No,
Drink did show up.
I think he knew it. He knew I was low on him. But again, this is worst case scenario here. 5 and 7. Do I think that's going to happen? No. But I kind of see a path to it happening, if that makes sense. So again, fingers crossed it doesn't happen. I got a lot of variance with this team though. So I'll just go ahead and say I think best case, Stephen, 9 and 3. Best case, what do you have for Missouri?
Mike, we're on the same page, my friend. I've got 9 and 3 as well, because you could talk yourself into they sweep the non-conference, they beat Florida, Arkansas, Mississippi State, and Kentucky, and then they start to like pick off a combination of other home games like Texas A&M. Maybe they upset Oklahoma. You kind of factor in an upset. You win those winnable SEC games in the non-conference, and that gets you to like a 9 and 3 type of season.
All right, so what will be the official record prediction from Stephen Lassan?
I might get a lot of grief, Mike. I'm going to take 7 and 5. I kind of almost split the difference here too. I could talk myself into 8 and 4. Ask me if we see Ahmad Hardy out there breaking off some long touchdown runs, maybe sooner than we anticipate.
I don't hate it, Stephen. I don't hate it. I don't love it necessarily because I want them to be better than that, but I got 7 and 5 as well as the official record prediction for the Missouri Tigers. And heck, you'd be hitting the over. I mean, if nothing else, that's a pretty low bar to hit, but 7 and 5, massive transition. Not totally bought in on old Austin Simmons yet. I think 7 and 5. I feel pretty good about it.
Do you think Austin Simmons is maybe one of the biggest X factors overall in the SEC this year?
Yeah, you could certainly make that case.
I think even more critical with the uncertainty surrounding Ahmad Hardy, but even if he was 100% full go from the start of the season, that Simmons's play was going to be like the make or break thing for Missouri, because I think in theory you're bringing in Chip Lindsey to upgrade your passing game. You're bringing in Austin Simmons, who's got all these, kind of high upside potential here. To me, like this is the X factor, because like you can look at 10 years in college football, they're make or break on the quarterbacks. I don't think Eli Drinkowitz is going to be make or break on quarterback. If Simmons doesn't work out, you just go get the next guy in the portal. But man, if he could really hit, then you're talking about changing the trajectory of this team for this season, I think.
Hey, well, one team doesn't seem like you can keep them out of your mouth there, Steve.
Yeah.
Mississippi State. So let's do them next. They've got over under 4.5. Year 3 of Jeff Lebby. ULM in the opener at home. At Minnesota, tricky game. At Carolina. Mizzou at home. Bam at home. Bye week. Then it's at LSU. Oklahoma at home. At Texas. Vanderbilt at home. Auburn at home. Tennessee Tech at home. Then the Egg Bowl in Oxford this year. Here's what we have as the win-loss toss, Stephen. We got ULM, Vanderbilt, and Tennessee Tech likely wins. Minnesota on the road at Carolina. Mizzou at home. Auburn at home. At Ole Miss. Got all those as tosses. And then likely losses. Bam at home. At LSU. Oklahoma at home. At Texas. Do you disagree with any of those?
I would have Vanderbilt as a toss-up game, only because those teams feel very in a very similar tier to me this preseason. I don't think there's a ton of difference in the power ratings. So I even though the game is in Starkville, I still would have that as a toss-up, Mike. But I think the rest of those are pretty spot on. I think that Minnesota game feels like one of the bigger swing games for Mississippi State and how the season could be perceived, I think.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that is fair. But do I think your worst case is fair? What do you have as the worst case for Mississippi State?
Mike, worst case scenario is pretty grim. They've only won one win. Remember, one victory in SEC play the last 2 years. So if you don't beat Minnesota, you only win one SEC game. That puts you at 3-9. I like the improvements with Zach Arnett. I love the upside of Kamario Taylor. Mike, I'm still worried about in-game management. How does Jeff Lebby close the door in some of these games? Because we saw this last year. So I'd say worst case has got to be like 3-9 for this team.
Ooh, and I thought you were high on Mississippi State.
Right.
I'm saying 4-8. How about that?
Oh.
I don't know. I'm buying back into Mississippi State, and it's got nothing to do with Jeff Lebby. This has got shades of Florida last year, so they may crash and burn. I should probably consider the head coach when I project these teams, but I think Kamario Taylor, he's, I'm buying all the hype I get that I hear with that guy. So give me worst case 4-8, and you're probably right, but I'm trying to be optimistic here.
4-8 probably, or 3-9 probably spells the end of Jeff Lebby's tenure, don't you think?
Absolutely, as it should.
Yeah, this is a hard job, and the schedules have been difficult, and obviously the portal has not made it easy. But man, to be this couple years into your tenure, if some of the things that we've seen in some of the games, like with the way it's managed, doesn't improve, then I think it's 4-8, 3-9 is a coaching change situation to Starkville.
So what do you got as the best case for Mississippi State?
Mike, forget all that negativity, right? Let's be optimistic. Mississippi State goes up to Minnesota. They beat the Golden Gophers. They win some of these home games in SEC play. They pick off Missouri. They pick off Vanderbilt, Auburn, maybe. They pick off some combination. They get to 7-5, Mike. Give Jeff Lebby a contract extension if that's the case, right?
Baby. How about this though? 8-4. That's what I'm saying. Best case 8-4. Again, this is going to take a lot. The Zach Arnett impact's going to be huge, perhaps on the defense. We're going to need Kamario Taylor to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And I will disagree with you, Stephen. I'm not giving Jeff Lebby any kind of extension, but what I am doing if we win 8 games is I'm asking Kamario Taylor, how much is it going to cost to bring you back for another year? And whatever that is, instead of paying Jeff Lebby, sorry ass, give it to Kamario Taylor because he saved your job.
That is a really interesting point when you think about like down the road this season, what coach is on the hot seat? Our team's going to be willing to say, we'll bring you back, but we're going to do the whole, let's invest more in the roster. So you don't buy out the coach, but you're willing to pay, somebody like Kamario Taylor to keep him around. And then the coaching buyouts go down a little bit next year. So Mike, I continue to be really impressed with Kamario Taylor. Just watching some of his film from last year, digging into some of the stats, everything to me says he is in line for a breakout season. And so if he does that and this defense improves, I think, like you said, 6-6, 7-5, maybe even a touch higher is all on the table for this team.
So where do you have the official record for Hail State?
Well, we said all those good things, Mike, right? I got 5-7. The swing game's the Minnesota game. Right now, I'd favor Minnesota that early in the season on the road. So if that's a W, they go back to a bowl game at 6-6, but I got 5-7 right now.
Man, what happened? How about this, Steve? It's 7-5. Is that crazy?
Whoa. All right.
I mean, I'm just thinking, I don't know. Maybe I'm just buying into the, maybe Cousin Shane kind of put something in my drink down there at SEC Media Days, but I'm thinking, I don't know. I'm buying into Mississippi State for some crazy reason.
I think let me say this. I think if they finish 5-7, I think they're better than a 5-7 team. I think their schedule just sort of limits the upside on the win total. I want to get to 6-6 though, because it feels like a bowl team to me. I just, I think they've made all the right improvements from the portal. Zach Arnett, they've got the superstar quarterback potentially. I am worried about the offensive line, but I think 6-6 is very, very feasible for this team.
All right, how about old Kentucky, Stephen? They're pretty confident on the old Bluegrass. We got over under 4.5. Youngstown State, Bama, back-to-back home games to open the season. Then we're at A&M. Then we got South Alabama, at Carolina, LSU at home, at Oklahoma, Vanderbilt at home. Then we get our bye. Then we're at Tennessee, Florida at home, at Missouri, Louisville at home. Here's the projected win-loss toss that we have. We got Youngstown and Southern Alabama as our likely wins. Got a lot of tosses here, though. Bama, Carolina, Florida, Mizzou, Vanderbilt, Louisville, and then likely losses at A&M, LSU, at Oklahoma, at Tennessee. Do you disagree with any of those?
Mike, I don't disagree at all. This is kind of the puzzling thing to me. I think I understand the optimism of Will Stein and Kenny Minchie and some of the portal stuff, but man, this schedule is really hard, isn't it? It's hard to find like guaranteed victories, and you got it outlined well with those 2 guaranteed victories and some toss-ups and some guaranteed for sure losses, I think.
Hey, did you see that there was a guy for CBS? I've heard literally every Kentucky fan under the sun. We got it in the comments too. It's the number 3 offensive line in the country, Stephen, according to one guy at CBS. So that therefore it makes him the number 3 offensive line in the country. Are you buying that? The number 3 offensive line in the country hails in Lexington.
I did see that, Mike, and I probably would politely disagree with that. I think this group,
are they even number 3 in the conference?
Right. Yeah. I mean, there is a world where some of these offensive lines like A&M, like in Oklahoma, I mean, Auburn, Kentucky, somebody out of that group's probably going to exceed all of our expectations. But man, 3rd in the country, Price and Hurd are big pickups. I mean, Shaluba was inconsistent at times at Ohio State. I'm struggling to get to top 3 in the SEC. So top 3 in the country seems like a pretty big leap forward. I could be very wrong, Mike. They could be way better than we had them in our rankings. 3rd seems pretty high, doesn't it?
I think Nick Roush paid him with some bourbon or something to write that article, if I had to guess. All right, so what would be your worst case scenario for Kentucky record-wise?
Mike, I think you did a great job on outlining the toss-ups and the guaranteed wins and losses, because that exactly matches like the worst case scenario. I think it's 2-10. I think you beat Youngstown, South Alabama, and struggle to find a win in SEC play. They do get Vanderbilt and Florida at home later in the year, so you could maybe talk yourself into a win or an upset there. But I do think there is a world where worst case scenario, it's 2-10.
Okay, well, I'm going to be a little bit more optimistic here, Stephen. I'm going to say 3-9. They found a toss-up win somewhere in that schedule. I don't think 3-9. I think after Stein, we're going to win because of me. I'm giving them 1 win there.
They could beat Louisville too, I should say. I there's the new kind of blood in the rivalry. Of course, Stein's a former Louisville quarterback. I do think Louisville's one of the better teams in the ACC this year. But new fresh start in the rivalry wouldn't be surprising if Kentucky maybe exceeded expectations and won that game. I'm just having a hard time talking myself into multiple SEC wins here.
What would be the best case you think for Kentucky?
Mike, tell me if I'm too low, but I went 6-6. I think just getting to a bowl game would be a best case scenario for this team.
No, I think you nailed it, Steve. That's exactly what I said. 6-6. Best case scenario, print the T-shirts. We did this because of Stein.
Yeah, right. I think 6-6 is doable if you sweep the non-con, because then that sets you up to where you could beat, we talked about Vanderbilt, Florida. Maybe you pick off an upset. I mean, Alabama week 2, we talked about the trouble that Kalen DeBoer's had against as a favorite at times. So you could talk yourself into that. Okay, if Minchie and Stein and this offense gets going, I could talk myself into pencil them in for an upset somewhere and they get to 6 victories.
So what would be your official record prediction for the Wildcats?
I'm going 4-8, Mike. I think they find a win in SEC play somewhere. Maybe they pick off Louisville, or maybe they pick off another win in SEC play. So slightly more optimistic than worst case scenario. Give me 4-8.
Yep. I think you nailed it, Stephen. That's exactly where I land. 4-8. Man, they really didn't want to go to a 9 game, which
yeah.
Again, I think brighter days are ahead, but I just don't think it's going to be this season for Will Stein and company.
is Kentucky one of the teams hurt the most by the 9-game schedule, you think? Especially relative to what they've been scheduling non-conference wise under Mark Stoops.
Yes, 1,000%. And
Yeah.
doing away with the Eastern Division. That kills them too.
Yeah. And also, I mean, not that this is not like a knock on Stoops, but I mean, think about what's happened to some of the teams in the East. Tennessee kind of went through a weird period. Butch Jones, Jeremy Pruitt, you had Florida and kind of in turnover. I mean, a lot of these teams in the East, like Kentucky took advantage of it, which you have to do if you're a program like this, but it's a whole new world. No divisions, 9 games. I'm going to be fascinated to see how some of these teams that are kind of at the bottom of the league, what's their mobility to get back to that kind of 8-9 win range at a place like Kentucky.
Well, speaking of a brave new world, Stephen, Vanderbilt, it's a new world for them apparently, because they were whipping ass last year. Their schedule, the 5.5 is their over-under. Austin P at home, Delaware at home, NC State at home, at Auburn, at Georgia, Ole Miss at home, Arkansas at home, at Kentucky. Then they get their bye at Mississippi State, Bama at home, at Florida, Tennessee at home to wrap them up. I got the win-loss toss. Stephen, likely wins Austin P, Delaware, and Arkansas. Toss-ups, NC State, at Auburn, at Kentucky, at Mississippi State, at Florida. Likely losses, at Georgia, Ole Miss, Bama, Tennessee. Disagree with any of those?
Could Tennessee be a toss-up game? Or am I just thinking too much what we saw last year?
Well, Heupel says you don't lose to Vanderbilt, so right. Hell no, that's got to be a loss, even though they did whip them pretty good last year.
I think outside of that, Mike, I think these are pretty spot on. I think that NC State game is really critical for Vanderbilt because in 9 games with this slate, they do play Kentucky, Mississippi State, and Arkansas, some of the teams that most people will pick at the bottom. So if you're trying to chart a path to like a bowl game, that's the path. Like you pick off Austin P, Delaware, NC State in those 3 games in SEC play. So I think those toss-ups, W's and L's look pretty good to me.
All right. So what would be your worst case scenario for the Commodores?
Mike, Diego Pavia's not walking through that door, right? So they lose to NC State. They lose to Kentucky, Mississippi State, and Auburn. All very winnable, but those are all on the road. So they pick off Arkansas at home. They beat Delaware. They beat Austin P. There's no upset this year. Vanderbilt goes 3-9 in worst case scenario.
I think that's how tall Diego Pavia is, 3'9", right?
Right. Yeah.
I kid. Yeah, 3-9. That's exactly what I said as well. Worst case scenario. It's going to be pretty interesting, Stephen. How depressing will that be for Arkansas fans if they lose to Vanderbilt?
Yeah, especially if Vanderbilt does go 3-9 and takes care of business with a true freshman quarterback. That would not give me good feelings if I was a Arkansas fan trusting Ryan Silverfield, right?
No, not at all. All right, what about best case scenario, though, for the Commodores?
Mike, the good news is Diego Pavia left a pretty strong foundation, right? Tim Beck's still around. There's the good vibes. They just got Jared Curtis. I'm going to go with 8-4, best case scenario.
Oh, wow.
They sweep those non-conference games. They take care of business against Kentucky, Mississippi State, and Arkansas. They find a couple wins in SEC play. Maybe they pick off Tennessee again. Kalen DeBoer probably have nightmares about going back to Vanderbilt after what happened a couple years ago. So super optimistic, Mike, but if Jared Curtis is good, I'll take Vanderbilt. Best case 8-4.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to say best case 7-5, 8-4, a little rich for my blood, but I see where you're going with a lot of that. I just think, I think it's going to be tough, Stephen. I really do. I'm down on Vanderbilt this year. Of course, that's nothing new to those guys. They've just been out here proving people wrong. So this will be a pivotal year for Vanderbilt and Clark Lee. It doesn't define the program, but it will, especially if they overachieve. I think it'll go a long way to garnering respect in the SEC if they can win 7-8 games.
100%, because Mike, the narrative is going to be, well, it was just Diego Pavia if they go 3-9 or 4-8. I think that also overlooks the sort of program improvements that Clark Lee's been doing. Since they had that terrible kind of start to his tenure, they've made some adjustments. They've been in the portal. They're maximizing NIL better, so they've adjusted. But I think the worst case would be they do go 3-9, they go 4-8. The product isn't very good, and it is it was just Diego Pavia, and then they start to kind of have to restart this rebuilding process next offseason. That's a worst case thing for this team.
All right, so what will be your official prediction record-wise for the Commodores?
I'm taking Vanderbilt at 6-6, Mike. I think they go back to a bowl game. It's hard to talk myself into the high-end upside because of true freshman quarterback, offensive line questions. I still think they go to a bowl game, so give me 6-6.
Too high, Stephen. 5-7. I hope I'm wrong, because I'd love to see them continue that bowl streak, but I think it gets snapped this year.
What's your biggest concern with Vanderbilt? Is it just Jared Curtis, or is it some like the offensive line or another position?
Defense.
Yeah.
And what a liability has been the entire time under Clark Lee. And I think we should have had that fixed by now. And I don't know that we do.
When Clark Lee was hired, Mike, I would have said that at one point they would have put together a pretty highly rated defense in the SEC. I think it's been a little surprising to me that they've had the issues they had. So yeah, I mean, it goes without saying, if you're taking away Pavia and the offense is not as good, the defense has got to pick up more of the slack, right?
I would think so.
Yeah.
But where they do that quite well, Stephen, that's down in Athens, of course, Georgia. 9.5 over under win total. Here's the schedule: Tennessee State, Western Kentucky, both at home, at Arkansas. Hunter Yurachek, he's mad as hell. That game's early. Oklahoma at home, Vanderbilt at home, at Alabama, Auburn at home. Then we get our bye. We get Florida and Atlanta, at Ole Miss, Mizzou at home, at Carolina, Georgia Tech at home. Here's the win-loss toss for the Dogs, Stephen. I got every game as a likely win, short of 3 toss-ups. Oklahoma at home, at Bama, at Ole Miss. Do you disagree with any of those?
Mike, that is 100% spot on. That's exactly what I had. It's funny. They were, I guess we can talk about Texas here in a minute, but not many teams in W&L projections are going to have 0 like penciled in losses. Georgia is one of those for sure.
Right. All right. So worst case for the Dogs, what do you think?
Mike, I think it's the way you outlined it on the W's and L's there. I think they could lose to Oklahoma, Alabama, and Ole Miss. They finished 9-3, and maybe they're still in the playoff, but this is kind of goes back to the receiving core, the passing game, the big plays. Maybe in these games against other top-ranked SEC matchups, they just don't have the offensive punch to win close games. So I'll take 9-3, absolute worst case scenario for this team.
Yep, I agree with that. For everything you just said, the likely toss-ups, I can't imagine they're going to lose all of them. So, but in a crazy world, maybe 9-3. How about best case? What do you think for the Dogs?
Mike, I went with 11-1. I don't think any team is going to run the table, but if one team is going to, it's probably going to be Georgia, because they do, getting Oklahoma at home. Yes, it's a toss-up. That's a huge check in their favor. They just beat Alabama, even though they struggled in that series. They beat Ole Miss last year in the regular season. I think they can win out 12-0. I just don't think any team in college football with an SEC slate is going to. So I'll take 11-1, best case scenario.
Now, do I think they're going undefeated? No, but best case, I think they could, Steven. So that give me best case 12-0. I don't think anyone's going undefeated, but you literally just said, if there is one team, it's Georgia. But I think they're going to go 10-2 overall. I think we got to get used to this world, Stephen, where even the so-called elite can drop a game or two, and the fact that the over/under is 9.5. I mean, they're telling you they don't think 11-1 is that likely, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%, Mike. I also think this raises another question about the playoff committee, which is you don't have to rank teams that have 2 losses, ahead of teams that have 3 losses. You don't have to order teams in loss order. Like, we can parse these teams out by tough schedules. So here we go. Another complaint about the playoff committee and the way they're doing the process. Because, in theory, Mike, a 9-3 Georgia team that's lost to like Oklahoma, Ole Miss, and Alabama, you are in that category of, man, they've played a hard schedule and they've lost those couple games. So, Mike, I'm more optimistic than you. I got 11-1. I could have picked 12-0. I just don't think any team is going to go undefeated in the SEC. So they have to lose somewhere. Give me 11-1, SEC champs, Georgia Bulldogs.
But wait, you don't think anyone's going undefeated? What about your team? Mighty Texas here, Stephen. Over under 9.5. Texas State, Ohio State. What is that?
UTSA, the Roadrunners.
3 in a row at home. Then at Tennessee, bye week. Oklahoma and Dallas. Florida at home. Ole Miss at home. Mississippi State at home. At Mizzou. At LSU. Arkansas at home. And then at A&M, Stephen, the win-loss toss. Oh, we got a couple tosses here. I got Ohio State, Oklahoma, LSU at LSU, and at A&M as toss-ups. Everybody else will win. Any disagreements there?
The only I would maybe consider, and maybe this is more of an upset kind of category, but at Tennessee, or what about Ole Miss coming to Austin? Ole Miss knocked out off Georgia in the college football playoff. What if Texas is just, we saw this last year, they're not as good as we think. So that's the only two I'd maybe kind of quibble with. But Mike, I think the other ones are pretty spot on.
That's why I like you, Stephen. Tennessee, yeah, throw that into toss category. What was I thinking there? But now I would love to hear what is your worst case for Texas? Is it like 11-1 worst case?
12-0, Mike. They're not going to lose a game. What are you talking about? Mike, I actually would consider 7-5 here.
Wow.
Like you could lose to Ohio State, Oklahoma, at LSU, at Texas A&M. We mentioned the Ole Miss, Tennessee. That's absolute worst case. I went back and forth between 8-4 and 7-5. There's just a lot of highly ranked opponents and tough road environments that they will face. So that's my worst case, 8-4 or 7-5.
Okay, well, I didn't know we could pick two, but I'm going to go 8-4. Worst case. I love to hear that 7-5 come out of your mouth, though, when we're talking Texas. Now, is that realistic? I don't think so. I mean, they got too much talent. Oh, Lord, Steve, did you hear they hired Will Muschamp? Apparently, he's an elite defensive coordinator. I don't know that we've seen that since about 2007, but he was good that one time in Austin, so he'll be good again. But 8-4, worst case, in my opinion.
Are they just trying to bring Will Muschamp back to Austin just in case Sark doesn't work out? Maybe there's like some long-term buyout they're still paying for Muschamp or something, the coach and waiting under.
He's still on the payroll. I get it. So that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, got to save some money. Got to talk Arch into coming back in 2027, right? So you save a few million, get Will Muschamp. Mike, I will tell you, my best case scenario is much more optimistic. I went 11-1 for best case. I don't think any team is going undefeated, but I think Texas, considering its schedule, 11-1's kind of got to be best case, right?
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it. 11-1, and then my official record, 10-2. For Texas, and they locked down a playoff spot, of course. Heck, I think even at 9-3, they deserve to get into the playoff with this schedule. So 10-2, I think they'd be a lock for the playoff.
9-3 with this schedule should probably get them in the college football playoff. But I think if you're a Texas fan, you're hoping you're not sweating out Selection Sunday, hoping to get in at 9-3, considering what this team brings back. Mike, I like 11-1. I think this team I could talk myself into 10-2. Like you have, but I went super optimistic. I went 11-1.
I'm having fun with the camera over here. No, I get it. I get it. You're the Texas Homer these days. So, yeah, no, I think that's more than fair. I also think it's more than fair, Stephen, that we've gone over 2 hours. So I feel bad. I don't want to keep you much longer, but I do want to shout out Kirby 16 King. And we got Chandler over here, Chandler B. And then Jared, he gifted a membership to, apologies, I can't say, guys, it's a crazy name he gifted to. And then Ricky Myers, all of y'all, welcome to
the family.
Yeah, I finally pointed to the right camera, not really. But any closing thoughts here, Stephen, as we wrap his bad boy up?
Mike, apologies for all of the technical gremlins on my end tonight. It was so good to catch up with you and all the cousins after being SEC Media Days going on last week. Teams have started fall practice, Mike. Week 0's 30-something days away. Week 1 will be here. Let's go. The season's almost here. The runway is started.
Absolutely. So we'll be here to cover all the action. Hopefully with working cameras, no promises there. Stay locked in on the channel. We got quite literally about 40-ish more interviews to drop. So I'm kind of slowly trickling those out, trying to get multiple videos out a day, which means we'll probably have about 3 weeks of videos coming. But stay locked in. We appreciate you. We'll be back tomorrow with Cousin Shane. But until then, we'll catch you on the next one.
Hey, buddy, this beer's for you, Mike, and Cousin Shane. That SEC podcast loves the Pirate, and the Pirate loves that SEC podcast. Hail State.